Hey everybody, welcome to Reasons for Roots. Today we're going to be talking all things history. So this year in our homeschool we have had our focus on history. So every year at the beginning of our homeschool year, when I am planning curriculum, when I am trying to figure out where our weaknesses are, where our strengths are, I try to evaluate and pick one area that I want to see us strengthened in collectively as a family. And so this year it was history. So I was on the search for the perfect history curriculum this fall. And I want to tell you that I have found two of the best history curriculums that I've ever used in our homeschool. What are they? They are Heart of Dakota and Biblioplan. Now, these are two very different styles of history. What I mean by styles, I mean that one is more Charlotte Mason inspired, and the other is written by a classical author, which I think can be turned into more Charlotte Mason inspired as well. We'll talk about those two coming up. How I used both of these programs. Why in the world would I use two history programs? I used two history programs, like I said, to make sure we were getting a solid history foundation. I felt like history was one of those subjects that we were just kind of just making it through. It has never been a strong suit in our homeschool. I love history. My kids enjoy history. But we just never could find one that fit us. I have used Abeka, BJU Press. I have used Mystery of History. And so all textbook stylish curricula. So this year I wanted to try something new. For years, 2 or 3 years, I have been researching Charlotte Mason. I love her philosophies. And I slowly started implementing some of her methods into our homeschool. Now we are a very heavily Charlotte Mason inspired homeschool, all because of one curriculum that kind of helped me to have confidence to do it, and that is Heart of Dakota. So I'll get into that in just a minute, but I want to say how I use these two together. So I decided that, yes, I wanted my daughter, who is in 5th grade, to use a Charlotte Mason inspired curriculum. I wanted us to be more Charlotte Mason inspired. Now, I wasn't totally confident in the method, and I wasn't totally confident in myself yet. I mean, we haven't tried it, right? So I thought, Biblioplan looks solid. It looks good. I'll get that, and I will read that aloud in our morning time before they go do their independent studies. Then they can read their own history literature independently. So that's what I did. I bought Remember the Days from Biblioplan. I wish I had it to show you, but I've already sold it. So one of my friends have already snatched it up. But Remember the Days is the one I read aloud. It is the elementary based program. So I'd read that aloud. Then they would go do their assigned reading independently to go a little deeper into history on their own level. I loved it. It worked great. Okay, so I have to admit, I just filmed 30 minutes worth of video and realized I did not hit the record button. So let's try this again. So let's get into Biblioplan. So it worked great for us. It worked well pairing it with Heart of Dakota. Let's talk a little bit about Biblioplan. Now, Biblioplan is a 4-year history cycle. We jumped in year 2. That is the medieval ages. We did ancients last year with Mystery of History. So we just jumped all in with medieval history. Now, I bought the companion, which is for high school level. It comes in 2 volumes. I bought Remember the Days. It is the textbook designed to be used with kindergarten through 7th grade. I bought the Family Guide, which I don't have those 2 things to show you because I sold them to a friend already. But we'll talk more about them in a minute. I bought the craft book. I bought the cool history questions, and I bought the maps. Okay, so they have, and I bought Giants of Faith. Now, they have tons of the add-ons you can use, that you can purchase. But this is the great thing about Biblioplan. You can use as much or as little as you want, okay? I'm kind of go all in kind of girl. That's just my personality. So I bought a lot to use. We did not use the art book. Let's be honest, I'm not crafty. I want to be crafty. Listen, at homeschool convention, I felt like I could be crafty. You know what I mean? So I bought this, and we did not use this. We didn't use it. Okay. Also, I bought maps. Now, we loved it, used it, did not use it every week. Just used it when I felt like we needed some review on our geography. Okay. Now, cool history questions, I did not use either.
Bye-bye.
Woo. Okay.
Phew.
Why didn't I use cool history questions? Because over the past few months, and really this started with Heart of Dakota, we have been transitioning into more of a Charlotte Mason method in our homeschool. I have studied and researched the philosophy of Charlotte Mason for years now, 2 or 3 years, and finally felt like I had a firm enough grasp of it to kind of start implementing some things. So we've moved more to written narrations, oral narrations. We don't do a whole lot of fill in the blank questions, okay? And so we just didn't use this because the atmosphere of our homeschool has changed, and that's okay. I bought this a year ago in March, and we're not the same homeschool we were a year ago. We've grown and we've changed, and that's okay. So I just set it aside and move on. Now, Remember the Days is the textbook for kindergarten through 7th grade. Loved it. That is the book that I read out of aloud every morning. I would just break it up to last. I even combined some chapters during the week, just making it work for us, okay? So that's what I read aloud to my 5th grader and to my 9th grader, okay? Now, this was simple enough for my 5th grader to easily grasp it. This was not too much for her. Sorry, I have company. What are you doing? And, it wasn't just way over her head, but it was challenging enough to her to where, she would, it just wasn't babyish. Does that make sense? Because a lot of curriculum that is directed toward elementary age children, I find kind of leaves my daughter like, so that's over, way under her reading level. She's a good reader. She's a thinker. And so, this was good enough for her to challenge her and to make her think, and it wasn't babyish. So that was a big problem I had ran into before, that it just wasn't challenging enough for her. Challenging enough for my 9th grader that he stayed engaged too. So this is not a watered down history program, if you get what I'm saying. This is perfect for middle school children, I believe, because both of my children, 5th and 9th, stayed easily engaged with Remember the Days. My friend who bought Remember the Days is actually going to use it with her 8th grader. So it's a very well-written textbook. It is not just so full of facts that you don't remember anything, and it's not dry. So a huge thing with history books to me is either they're dry or they're too conversational. And what I mean by conversational is that, they're trying to talk to you like they're there. My kids get lost in that. They don't like that. And we like more of a story-based approach. We like living books, but with a textbook, you usually don't get a living book approach. But Julia Nell has absolutely done a phenomenal job with this textbook, and she tells great stories in there, and she makes the characters come to life in a great way. So we loved Remember the Days. It was phenomenal. It had great pictures. We loved the geography. We loved the church history. I cannot say enough about the church history part. We so enjoyed that. And we did the Giants of the Faith notebook, where they would write, just a narration or whatever they remembered about that hero of the faith that we had been studying in the notebook that I bought from Biblioplan. And with the companion, there was enough church history information to give my high school ninth grader a church history credit. So, so let's talk about that for a minute. Because my ninth grader, he did not use Heart of Dakota. For his independent reading, like I talked about in the beginning of the video, he used the companion guide that went along with Biblioplan. So, he would just listen to the lesson and basically remember the days would be an overview. And then the companion would go more in depth. Now, the companion is a little more textbooky. By that, I mean it's full of information, almost too much information. It was really hard for him to digest all the information in this thing. And it's really choppy. Y'all see that? Can you see how it's just, you can't really follow the flow of it very well. He had a hard time with that. But I think they're revamping the companions. It's still a great program, but those were my two negative things about the companion guide. Now, it's a great high school program, like I said. So my son was using that as his independent reading. He would read whatever I assigned to him out of the companion. And then my daughter would read whatever I assigned to her, or whatever day she was on out of Heart of Dakota. Now, with Biblioplan, it also came with I also purchased the family guide. Now, excuse me. The family guide is such a great resource. It's one of the best written and laid out resources I've ever seen with homeschool curriculum. It lays out every week for you, every unit. It gives you an overview. It tells you books that are recommended for your child to read. It gives you a description of the book, what it's about. It's so detailed. It gives you a list of movies to watch, more spines to add into the curriculum. It tells you when to read what. It's wonderful. The Family Guide is such a well-written resource. I recommend it definitely if you're going to use Biblioplan. So I would use the Family Guide, pull out some readers, maybe for my son to also read along with a companion. We would read from the History Live series for church history to give that a little more oomph to it. Heart of Dakota scheduled some of those for my daughter, so that worked along well. And so overall, we love Biblioplan. I think it's a great, great history program, and I have been very impressed. Now, what about Heart of Dakota? I get so many questions about Heart of Dakota. Probably more questions about Heart of Dakota than anything I've ever put on my channel. And I love that because they are a company that needs to be more highly recognized, I feel like. They are phenomenal. I just love them so much. And so I did a video about 4 reasons why you should try Heart of Dakota. And so if you are curious why I recommend Heart of Dakota and more in-depth reasons, I'll try to link that video below. But just go check it out because I'm not going to get just super in-depth because this video could take hours if I did. Now, I ordered the Resurrection to Reformation for my 5th grader. Now, on Heart of Dakota's website, it gives you like suggested guides to place your children in. Now, being her age, she's 10, she could have been in Preparing Hearts for His Glory, which a lot of people use for 4th grade, Creation to Christ, a lot of people use for 5th, or she could have been in Resurrection to Reformation. A lot of people use this for 6th grade. On her skill level, she was more here. She's a great reader. She just did a lot of the skills that would be needed for a higher level in this book. So I went ahead and I put her here for 1, because she placed there. For 2, because we've already done ancients the year before, and I knew she would be bored stiff if I put her in ancients again. And 3, I want my children to be on the same history cycle. This is so big for me. I don't want us to be scattered throughout all history. I love for us to be all together, learning the same history, time periods, so that we can have some discussion. And to me, that's when connection comes in. And that's one of the reasons why I homeschool, is to have firm family connections. So I wanted her to be on the same page as my 9th grader, because my 12th grader can't be, just because of his credits. I wanted to make it fit, and I just couldn't. Maybe if you saw my curriculum pics, I think I put him in Biblioplan in that video. I had to change that real quick because his credits weren't just not going to allow it. And so he has to do his own thing. But I wanted my 2 middles to stay on the same history. So that's where I placed her. Now, I will tell you, even though she placed here, her age and her ability, this was kind of difficult for her at the beginning. Some of the readings, I had to read aloud to her for her to fully grasp. So it wasn't quite as independent as I thought it was going to be for her. But that's okay. We enjoyed reading them together. But as she got used to it, it got better. But some of the books, she just needed some help with comprehension on. And so I just read them aloud to her, and we got the flow of it pretty soon. So what I love about Heart of Dakota is how simple the guide is. Okay, so you have a 2-page guide. Okay, so with the 2-page spread, you have history on one side and like your staple, like English and math and all that over here. Now, with the history, you will have a history project. You'll have reading about history, independent history, geography, and then your story time or your read aloud. I loved the books that Heart of Dakota chose to go with this time period. Absolutely loved the books. I can't say enough about that. My only hang up with this guide, and it's just this guide, is that it's about halfway through, around week 20, it's scheduled Mystery of History as your living book spine for the remainder of the year. So the reason I bought Heart of Dakota was to be more Charlotte Mason, was to have more living books. Say hi.
Hi.
Okay, go over there and play. Was to have more living books. Okay, I bought it so I could have a springboard into Charlotte Mason because I didn't trust myself. Okay, does that make sense? So I bought it as a springboard into the Charlotte Mason philosophy. I wanted living books. That's what I wanted. That's what my picture was. Okay, I knew that Mystery of History came with the package, of course. I knew that they used it. I just had no idea it was for half the year. Like, I thought they might just reference to it every once in a while. So once I realized that, this is my thing. And maybe I'm being unfair here. I don't know. This is just me. If I wanted to use Mystery of History, I would have bought Mystery of History. So I didn't want to use Mystery of History. I wanted to use living books. And it was okay with me to use Mystery of History sporadically, if that makes sense, like here and there. I did not expect to read through the whole book in half a year. So that was my downside with it. And we kind of started tweaking some things when that started. I started reading it more along with our Biblioplan lessons, and I picked her some living books out to read for her independent stuff. Now, besides that, there's only one other downfall to me for Heart of Dakota. Now, this is a downfall to me, and it might be an upside for you, so listen carefully. So the downside for me was that it was too independent, okay? And what I mean by that is all of her beauty subjects, her art study, her poetry, her all the read alouds, all of that was scheduled separately. She was to do that by herself. There was no interaction with us as a family. So basically, like if you had 4 children in Heart of Dakota, they would be in 4 different guides, and they would be just doing 4 different things by themselves. There's no way to do Heart of Dakota with children spread out like mine are and keep them all on the same page, okay? And so there's no family coherence. Now, if you had children that are stair steps, then you could fit them, place 3 here, 2 over here, and you can have somewhat of coherence in your family. But for me, I want more unity. So we have morning time where we do artists, we do poetry, we do Shakespeare together in the morning times. And so for me, a lot of the extras that make Heart of Dakota wonderful, that makes it full and rich, we were already doing together. And so I just kind of stopped doing them with her so she wouldn't have double, a double take of it, because I want us to be together as a family. Now, that might be a plus for you. A few years ago, I worked at our church, and they actually came to work with me and would do their schoolwork there at church while I worked. I had to be there 9 to 3, 3 to 4 days a week. So we were there a lot, and I needed them to be independent. This would have been a great curriculum for that situation, for the working mom, for a mom who maybe has a lot of kids and wants some independence. This is wonderful. It's rich. And what I mean by rich is it's full of good literature. It has artist study. It has Shakespeare. It's full of Bible. It's full of biblical truth throughout. It is laced with biblical truth. It has so many great resources connected with it. This is the richest curriculum I've seen, like grade level wise, that you don't have to pull and do yourself. That's just order it and go. This is so full. And I absolutely love Heart of Dakota for that. Now, I don't want her to be so independent. I don't want to hand her this and be like, okay, you go do yours, and then tell my 9th grader you do yours, and 12th grader you do yours. And I don't like that in my homeschool. I want more connection. And so that was my only downfall with Heart of Dakota. Overall, it is an A+ curriculum, and both of these, Heart of Dakota and Biblioplan, would make anyone a great history program. I do want to mention the notebooking pages with Heart of Dakota. These are beautiful. Let me flip the camera around so I can show you some of my daughter's work. So these come with notebook pages. And you can just see the beautiful illustrations. That was one of her projects she did, to write it in Greek and then write the Bible verse. You have geography, a little fill in the blank. It's absolutely wonderful. They write their narrations and so forth. And so I loved the notebook. She got better at it, of course, as she went on. She learned to write in pencil. So overall, this is just so great. This added so much depth to this video. I feel like it's great a lot. And it is. I love it. I love Heart of Dakota, and I love Biblioplan. And here's the kicker. I love them both, but I'm not using either next year. So why wouldn't I use history curriculum that I love and that I think is great? And it's because we have transitioned into a different homeschool. I think as home educators, we grow as people, our students grow, our children grow, and our homeschool, the atmosphere of our homeschool changes. Some people it doesn't. Some people you might use the same curriculum for years. But for me, it's a huge priority to keep a pulse on our homeschool. And for us, I have really been trying to kind of lean us more into a Charlotte Mason method. Now, I can do another video if y'all are interested on the Charlotte Mason method, how I've kind of transitioned over, why I've transitioned over. Leave me a comment if that's something that interests you. But that's just who we are now. We're full of narrations and we're full of living books, and we're just more Charlotte Mason than we've ever been. And so Biblioplan really doesn't fit that model as much as I desire it to. So next year, I'll be reading aloud living books instead of from a textbook for our group history time. And as far as Heart of Dakota goes, it's Charlotte Mason inspired. It's Charlotte Mason enough. It's about as Charlotte Mason as I am. I would never be a purist because I'm too eclectic for that. But it's about as Charlotte Mason as I am, meaning it does change some stuff. This is not a pure Charlotte Mason program. But why not use it? And I've already mentioned that. It's a great program, and I absolutely love it. But my desire to be on the same page as a family is much greater than my love for that curriculum, if that makes sense. I want so much for us to all be on the same history cycle, to be able to have those deep conversations with each other. Because, listen, my kids are spaced out, but I have seen so much benefit in that. Because my little girl, my 5th grader, grows from hearing the conversations from high schoolers. And my 5-year-old, which has some processing issues, grows from hearing conversations from a 5th grader. And so it's wonderful to have such a big age range. We can learn from each other so much. And I love it that they're able to help one another. Maybe my 5th grader has a question about George Washington. My 9th grader might be able to answer and even add in a little more. So I just like being on the same history cycle. So I couldn't do that. I was going to try to make it and force it with Heart of Dakota, but I just couldn't. I just couldn't do it. It was going to be too much. And I didn't think it was fair to my high schooler. So we are not saying goodbye to Heart of Dakota. We're saying see you later, because next year I'll have a 12th grader and a 10th grader. And once them two kind of move on their way and start their own lives, then I'm going to revisit. My plan is to revisit Heart of Dakota for my daughter. Okay, and so I also used Heart of Dakota, Little Hearts for His Glory, for my little guy. I'm going to do a separate video on it because they're just so different because of the age ranges. So I loved it too, though, and I'm going to do a thorough review of Little Hearts for His Glory coming up. But that's it for today. That's our bite. Why did I say bite?
Bite?
I don't know.
What did you mean? What did you mean?
I don't know. That was our look.
What?
That was our look into Heart of Dakota and Biblioplan. If y'all have any questions, maybe if you want to leave some comments below, tell me what history program you like and what's working for your family. We'll see you next time.
Bye.